will you step in? When will you step in if they access or block the road, or if they say anything anti-Semitic in their speeches? Will you step in there?
They will be operational decisions for being on the ground on the day. We'll be giving quite acute instructions to our forward commanders in relation to the activities. I can say we have received criticism over the last few days for not making more arrests on Monday night. Investigations into those matters are continuing. Identification of the individuals involved in that proved exceptionally difficult at the time. So we are going through an investigative process at the moment, and if we can identify offenders from Monday committing offences, we will take action.
Is it illegal that you received on about Monday's protest about not making more arrests? There's also been quite a lot of criticism around police allowing the anti-Semitic chants and having the Israeli flag. What do you make of those?
I can totally understand the public sentiment, but I think it's important to remember too that moving forward and the current circumstances over in Israel and the conflict with the terrorist group Hamas will be ongoing, and this is about moving forward, not looking backwards. I can totally understand the criticism that happened on Monday. However, that was a quick moving escalation in activities that the commanders on the ground dealt with as they saw fit at the time. I can understand how certain members of the community would be disappointed in that response, and certainly the Jewish community, and we are working with the Jewish community to try and explain to them what our actions were on Monday and how that came about.
You seem to be forward about this
for the safety of the Jewish community in New South Wales and bolstering security around schools or synagogues?
Part of Operation Shelter incorporates that. We're having high visibility operations around synagogues, around Jewish schools, and speaking to the Jewish Board of Deputies this morning, we are going to also increase visibility around Jewish hospitals and retirement villages.
Do you have genuine concerns for...
That is the Acting Commissioner David Hudson of the New South Wales Police Force. There has been a new protest task force set up, and as we heard from the Acting Commissioner, they cannot stop protests and people gathering at Town Hall. So there will be a bigger police presence. You heard there at the end that the police have been in close contact with the Jewish Board of Deputies, and there will be a bigger police visibility in Jewish communities. And can I tell you, I have an example as to why that needs to happen. In the last half an hour, I've been sent a video from the streets of Bellevue Hill, where a young Jewish member of the community had the Israeli flag draped over his car. He was then confronted by a construction worker who said, "Put it back in your car or I'll kill you all." This is that video.
Put it back in your car. No, put it back in your car. I swear to God, that's like a loser.
So that happened on the streets of Bellevue Hill on Sunday afternoon, I am told, and just one example of the threats that some of the Jewish community have experienced in the last couple of days. Joining me now is Alex Ryvchin, the co-CEO of the Executive Council of Australian Jewry. Thank you so much for your time. I've just obtained this video. It would be really difficult for you to have heard that, Alex, but essentially the confrontation is between a construction worker, unnamed, on the streets of Bellevue Hill. "Put it back in your car or I'll kill you all." Are you aware of this particular threat or any of its kind?
No, I'm seeing this for the first time and I'm mortified. It makes my blood boil. I can't say I'm surprised. We've seen over the last few days that there are sizable numbers of people in our community that have these sorts of views, that have this deep-seated hatred for the Jewish community, that can't distinguish between foreign conflict and our domestic citizenry, that look at what happened on the streets of Israel, the carnage unfolding day after day, the developing stories that we're hearing, the most graphic, shocking things that we've seen since really the Holocaust era. And these people are defending that conduct, they're reveling in it, they're celebrating it, and they're now trying to take it out on the Jewish community locally as if we haven't suffered enough. So absolutely appalled by this.
I asked you 2 days ago, Alex, whether there was a greater security threat to Jewish people living in Australia. I should point out that Bellevue Hill is in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, and the eastern suburbs of Sydney is one of the highest, if not the highest, population of Jewish people living in Australia. But I suspect now that we've seen that protest, we've seen this special task force from police set up today, that security threat against Jewish people has heightened in the last day or so?
Well, look, we're in constant contact with the police and with the government and with our own security advisors to assess threats. I can't go into the specifics of it, but I can tell you, in light of everything that's been happening, the scenes that we've seen, footage like that which you've just played, invariably the community will take measures to protect its assets and protect its citizens and its community. There's no doubt about that.
What is your advice to Jewish people in Australia now?
You know, I'm sort of torn, because on the one hand, I want to encourage my people to be proud, to identify as Jews, to deepen their Jewishness at a time when it's under attack here and around the world. But I have a young family, and I know that many in my community worry about the safety of their children and their loved ones. And so I would advise them to be proud, but to be smart as well. Don't be antagonistic, be alert, be careful. If you see anything suspicious, report it immediately to communal roof bodies or to the police, certainly. This isn't a time to cower and be fearful. We're Australians, for God's sake. This is a free country, and we should be free to walk the streets and be who we are without fear. It's the scum that you're projecting there on the screen that should be fearful. But at the same time, we need to be alert and we need to be smart.
Well said, Alex. Thank you for your time, as always. Let's just see that video again. This happened on the streets of Bellevue Hill just this weekend gone. This is just a day after, at the time, that these terror attacks had happened in southern Israel. Two young Jewish men on the streets of Bellevue Hill outside their home, I'm told. They were accosted, not physically touched or accosted, but certainly there was aggressive language from an unknown, what appears to be construction worker. The words there, which are very difficult to hear, is, "Put it back in your car or I'll kill you all." Joining me now is James Paterson. He's a Shadow Home Affairs Minister. James, thanks so much for your time and your patience this morning. I've just obtained this video. I've got it sent to me from a trusted source, and it's really the worst fears realised in Australia, isn't it?
Laura, that's exactly right. That was a very troubling video that you just played, and unfortunately it is consistent with reports we've had to police here in Melbourne overnight of a group of young men driving around a car in obviously Jewish areas of Melbourne and saying that they were looking for Jews and looking to kill Jews. That's exactly what the Jewish community fears from these events, and they are unfortunately right to fear that. We must make sure that our police, that our security and our intelligence agencies are doing everything they can to make sure that none of the violence that we've seen in Israel is repeated here in Australia, and that the Jewish community feels safe to go about their lives in the normal way. I want to see a visible police protection at Jewish schools, at Jewish synagogues, at other places of worship, because the worst thing would be for these events to be repeated here.
Yeah, and often the Jewish community take matters into their own hands, and they have their own private security. Here in New South Wales, we've just heard from police, James, that there is a special protest task force that's being set up, and there is going to be more police presence in Jewish communities, such as Bellevue Hill that we just showed you there. Is this happening in Victoria too?
Look, not yet, Laura, and while New South Wales Police did not cover themselves in glory on Monday, I am pleased to see that announcement this morning. That is an appropriate response, and I want to see the same response from Victoria Police as well. Unfortunately, we have just the same amount of risk that this could happen here in Victoria. There was a protest rally in Melbourne last night, Laura, where a picture of Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, a listed terrorist organisation, was proudly displayed on the streets of Melbourne. That's a shocking thing. At that rally, a chant from the river to the sea, Palestine should be free. That means from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, in other words, the entirety of the modern state of Israel should be destroyed so that Palestine can be free. These are the views which are being openly and proudly expressed on our streets by pro-Palestinian activists, and it is no wonder that Jewish Australians feel unsafe in those circumstances, and police must step up to make sure that nothing terrible happens here.
Police are stepping up in New South Wales. I think the New South Wales Premier has certainly done that this morning as well, given that he needs to bring two communities or the entire community together at a time like this. But I ask now what the federal government's role in all of this is. There has not been a National Security Committee meeting of Cabinet convened, and that is a concern.
Laura, I was incredibly shocked to read that. When I first saw it, I thought it must not be true. I thought one of the first things the Prime Minister should have done on Saturday afternoon, as these reports came in, was to schedule a meeting of the National Security Committee of Cabinet, because it is that committee that makes relevant decisions, for example, about getting Australians repatriated home from Israel, where we know there are 10,000 Australians currently visiting and living in Israel. It's that committee which directs our agencies to provide additional resources for community protection and support. And it is that committee which ensures that ministers are well briefed and on top of the issues here in Australia. We know from the past, in 2006, with the conflict between Hezbollah and Israel, that there was threats against the Jewish community here in Australia. And so it should have been immediately clear when these events occurred that the first thing that should have happened was convening the National Security Committee Cabinet, and I just can't believe the Prime Minister hasn't done so.
And just quickly, James, should we read anything into the fact that there has not been a phone call between Anthony Albanese and Benjamin Netanyahu?
I really hope that is just a scheduling issue. I really hope that there's nothing of substance to that. I really hope that the government is doing everything it can to communicate with the government of Israel and to express our very strong support and solidarity in the Jewish state's greatest time of need.